And he presses the wrong button and everything gets shut down. Well, that was a mistake. I'm here. Sorry I'm a bit late. Yes, I literally pressed the wrong button and everything got shut down, which does happen sometimes. So we're covering monsters. We're doing... I changed what I was going to do today. I was going to do the Manticore. And then the problem with Manticore is the Manticore doesn't really need that much done to it. I didn't really feel like I was going to have enough to offer. It's actually a pretty good solid stat block. But the Azer I avoided because I looked at it and I thought, oh, unholy mess. I do not want to deal with you. And then I realized that's the one I should deal with. So I changed my mind. So yes, the Manticore got bumped and the Azer has made its way into the live stream. I've got a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. I'm going to be covering this as quickly as I can, going through the math and so forth. So grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we will get started on doing the Azer. The Azer. I think it's the Azer, isn't it? Something like that. Anyway, let's go. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about how to go about taking the Azer, which is like a fire dwarf, and fixing it. I don't think the stat block is right. I think it needs something done to it. Do you notice it's a challenge rating 2, but it has a bucket load of armor, and there's a few things in here that don't look quite right, that probably need fixing. There are some parts that are perfectly fine, but there are definitely aspects to this monster that I think do need fixing, and so we're going to do that today. So I'm going to go through and break it all down. I'll do the maths, of course. I'll show you. My biggest problem with this monster is it doesn't do enough damage. Its armor class is way too high, and it's not really an Azer warrior. In other words, it's just an Azer. It's got a shield, it's got a weapon, but it's just got natural armor. But you can put armor on an Azer. So that would be a different stat block. So I don't want to change the challenge rating. This is one of the biggest problems I had with the Azer, is I didn't want to change the challenge rating, and because of that, I was really reluctant to actually approach this particular build. But it does need to be done, and actually somebody did it really well. And I would say Kelsey pumped up the level of the monster, which is probably what it needed, and built it, and probably did it spot on. But we're not building Shadow Dark here. We're dealing with Dungeons and Dragons 5e, so we've got to deal with that. So, what changes would you make to the Azer? That is what I'm going to put forward. Yeah, what changes would you make to the Azer? And yeah, by all means, share your thoughts and comments. I have a document prepared, which I'll be working through and going back and forth from every once in a while. So let's get into this now, because, yep, there's always a lot. Sometimes there's more to get done than I expect, so we can't muck around. Here we go. So I'm going to work my way through this. I'm going to be using the Dungeon Master Guide. So this book here, there is a table in here that I've been using. It's not perfect, and of course it might change because you know we have a new system. They might be saying it's the same system. It's got similarities, but there's enough changes going on that it's really a new system as far as I'm concerned. So let's have a look and break down all of our numbers here. And the first thing that comes to mind when I look at the Azer is it's a challenge rating 2 monster. And if you look on page 274, it suggests that a challenge rating 2 monster have a proficiency bonus of +2. That's all fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you look at armor class and it says 13. And we've got an armor class of 17, which means for it to really be sitting as a 17, it should be at least like a level 8 or 9 or 10 monster to be able to have an armor class that high. That's absolutely ridiculous for the type of monster you're dealing with here. So I think that's the first thing we need to fix. And I was trying to figure out the best way to solve this problem, because I don't want to change the challenge rating, but I don't want the armor class to not be reflective of it having some decent armor. It's got a dexterity of +1, so that's 1. It's got a shield, so that's another 2. So that's 3 already. We've got to add 10 to that, makes 13. And then if we give it natural armor of just 1, that makes 14. 14 is not so far out of the realm of the 13 that it would not be a problem, and that would change where it should be sitting in terms of challenge rating. Even though challenge rating is kind of like a silly goose, frankly. But if you're trying to be consistent with your monsters throughout your rating, the idea is not to be too far out from that. So I think that's the sensible thing, is go from a 17 to a 14, because that's way, way, way too high. You shouldn't be having to deal with that sort of thing. That's ridiculous. So now we need to, you think about this. If you are a level 2 character, you probably have an attack bonus of 5. To hit that armor class, you have to roll a 12 to hit them. Not a 10, it's not a 50% chance, okay, a 12. So you have essentially about a 40% chance of hitting the target. I suppose you could say 50 and 40 is not that much. It's way too high for this sort of thing. And then its hit points are ridiculously low. So challenge rating 2 should have between 86 and 100. Now, not the average, but definitely, at the top end, if you were using maximum hit points, I would say that you need to be looking at something that's a lot higher than that. And going as high as 60 is what our maximum is. The average is 39. That's not going to be good enough. We need to actually fix that. And I think the easiest way to fix that is to bump up our number of dice, which means that it changes everything. I hate to say it, but I'm going to make it 11, not 5. It's too low. And the D8, we can keep that. So our con modifier is a +2, multiplied by 11. I should get my calculator out so I can actually use this and do my little calculations as I go, so you can see. So we've got con of 2, multiplied by 11. What do? I just pressed the wrong button. Whoopsie. So 2 multiplied by 11 equals 22. So it's not 12 now, it's now 22 that we're going to add to this. So now we need to do our calculations for the average, and we want to sit within that bracket that we were talking about before, and I think this will do it. So our average is 4.5, because it's an 8-sided dice, so 4.5. And then we multiply that by 11. And we got 49.5. And we add 22. And we get 71.5. So 71, we round down. That's our average now. That should be the lowest number that we have. Our maximum is now going to be 11 times 8, which is 88. Then we add the 22, gets to 110. Now, it said the range should be, where is it? Oh, did I push it up too high? Or maybe I have. I pushed it up just a smidgen too high, so I need to trim off 1. I think it's a 10-sided dice. So make it a 10-sided dice, recalculate that. Sorry, people, that's going to be too much. That's about 10 hit points more than we really needed at the top end, so we'll adjust that. So 10, that's 80, it'll be, 10 multiplied by 8, it's 80, add the 22, oops, now not 22, it's 20, isn't it? It's the problem, as soon as you make move one number and you're going to change everything. So that should hit at 100. That should 100. That's 100. That's our maximum. And maximum hit points should be up to 100. So we're right where we really need to be. We could go down a little bit lower. It doesn't need to be quite as high as that. We could just trim it down just a smidgen more, because we could be anything between 86 and 100. So maybe we trim down a little bit more. I thought this was going to work fairly easily, but we'll just keep making some adjustments until we feel like we're in a nice sweet spot. 9, that means I've got to change this, doesn't it? 9 times that is 18. Okay, so now there's our formula again. So 9, clear this. 9 times 8 equals this. Whoops, that's not cleared. 9 times 8 equals 72. Okay, there's our number. Add the 18 equals 90. So 90 is sort of sitting in between 86 and 100. I think that's probably much better in terms of a top figure. So we'll put this here as 90. And now we need to figure out what our average is. The average is not that important. It's the top end that is important. So now we'll take the 4.5, multiply that by the 9, gives us 40, and then we add the 18, and we get 58. 58, which, as we can see, is a lot higher than the average that we were given before. It just did not have enough hit points to be sitting in that realm. Okay, so that's been done. That's fixed. Our hit points are fine. Our speed is fine. I looked at the speed. It doesn't need to change. I don't know that we really need to worry too much about the strength modifier because it's a challenge rating 2 monster facing level 2 characters. Most characters are going to have a +3 to whatever their main thing is. So a +3 on their strength is fine. We don't need to worry about that. It's got a con saving throw. And this is basically a +4. That's fine. It seems to fit in line with the idea of it being a dwarf or a fire dwarf. It's got damage immunities to fire and poison, and it's got a condition immunity to poison, being poisoned. All of which I think are perfectly fine. I don't think we need to add any more damage immunities to this thing, so I'm not going to muck around with that. I was thinking seriously, though, about a skill. Skills are one of those things where they kind of get forgotten about with monsters, and I'm going to add in a skill because I think it should have a skill. Not necessarily the best skill. I don't think we should have like perception and boost its perception. But if we're going to make anything, let's at least give it a decent skill that it would use. And I think athletics is the one that I would go for generally. Saving throws, and then we get this one. So let's drop in a skill proficiency. Skills, athletics. And that'll be now its strength, so +3, and then a 2 proficiency bonus, so it's +5. So this is new. I don't think that there's any other skill I need to add, but if you have any ideas, you'll let me know, and I'll put them in if you think that I need to be there. That's all good as far as I'm concerned. Going down, its passive perception is 11. That's fine. We've got that there. But it's a fire dwarf, and you know, Duragir and dwarves, don't they see in the dark? Don't they see in the dark? I thought they did. I think even the playable dwarf nowadays has got some sort of tremor sense. And I was trying to think about whether I wanted tremor sense or I wanted dark vision. I really want to put dark vision on this. It was on my mind, and I'm thinking it definitely has to have dark vision. Dark vision. And I would not muck around. I'm going to make it 120 feet. Like, you know, we're not going to give it a pathetic dark vision. That's what you do when you don't like the monster and you want it to die fast. But dark vision should have a decent score. So I've got 120 feet there, and I just need to go here, dot, comma, paste. But what makes this different from a Duragir or a Duragar, and what makes it different from other dwarves? And I am tempted to include tremor sense as well, because this is one of those dwarves that lives where there's seismic activity. And I was looking at some of the older, like there's nothing really in the AD&D monster manuals I discovered. So I had to look at the 5e monster manual, I had to look at the 4e monster manual, I looked at Shadow Dark. I didn't check out 3.5 because I don't have it. But I think tremor sense makes sense. If you're in a seismic area, I feel like you would be better at dealing with that sort of stuff. So we're going to do tremor sense as well. tremor sense. Very few things have a tremor sense. And if I remember right, is it the purple worm? Is the purple worm the one that has tremor sense generally? And it's... How powerful do they make the tremor sense for the purple worm? Let's have a look. Purple worm, here we go. It has blind sight tremor sense 60 feet. So it's got quite a good tremor sense. It's got blind sight because it's got no eyes. But we could give it tremor sense. This creature, this is a monstrous creature, right? It's gargantuan. But 30 feet of tremor sense would be probably fine. So 30 feet. Let's do 30 feet. 30 feet. 30 feet. Did I get this right? Am I writing it up correctly? No, I'm going to make sure I put the word feet too, don't I? Feet. Feet. Full stop. Comma, full stop. And this needs to have a feet in there as well. Okay. Alright, so that's that. The language, I'm fine with this. Just leave it as it is. Heated body. Is there any problem with heated body? I don't really think there was. I think the heated body was fine. The creature that touches the Azer or hits it with a melee attack while within 5 feet of it takes 5 on average, or 1d10 fire damage. That's a bit rough, I guess, if you are up close in your melee. But it's an aspect of the Azer that has always kind of been there, as far as I can tell from its inception. So I'm not going to mess with it. And it's a super simple rule. It hasn't been written in a way that's confusing. Pardon me, people. So I'm struggling. My hay fever is out of control. I'm going to come to the live chat in a second, but I just want to work through this, people. And I don't want to get distracted. Okay, next. Heated weapons. When the Azer hits with a metal melee weapon, it deals an extra 3 or 1d6 fire damage included in the attack. Great, awesome. So we need to make sure we consider this when we're doing our assessment of how much damage it should do. That's all good. Illumination. The Azer sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. So it's not as much as a big, huge torch, but it's certainly some. So it stands out. You're probably going to see it. Okay, next. It has one attack. It's got its Warhammer. So for a level 2 character facing a challenge rating 2 monster, what should we have as an attack bonus? It says on this table in the Dungeon Master Guide, a +3. That's bollocks. Like, most characters are going to have at least a +5. And I would not make it less than that. I honestly wouldn't do that. Your players, their armor class can be better than the Azer. That's going to happen. So it should be at least a +5, in my opinion. Anything from challenge rating an 8th through to about challenge rating 3 should have at least a +5. 0 challenge rating doesn't really need, it doesn't matter. It could be much lower. It doesn't matter. It's not a combat monster. But level 4 upward should definitely be something else. Right, you're boosting again. So, okay, now damage. The problem with this is I don't want to change the fire damage, and I highlighted the damage that this Warhammer does. And the reason I highlighted it is there's a problem with including things that have pre-existing types of weapons. If the players have a weapon and it's a Warhammer, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to think in terms of the Warhammer in here that we get to play with, is that identical to the Azer Warhammer? And of course, that's often a jumping off point for the design team. It's like, okay, what does a Warhammer, standard Warhammer that players are wielding do? And it's a 1d8. And it's versatile, so it can do 1d10 as well. So they've tried to build it around that as best they can. And just by dumb luck, it is kind of within the realm of where the damage needs to be, right? No, unfortunately not. It's way too low. And so this is one of those times where you have to look at the weapon that the monster is wielding and realize that their weapon is not the player character's weapon. Because if I use one hand and I have a shield and I'm doing an average of 7 points of damage, then I add my 3 for the damage that I'm doing with the fire. So see if I can just scroll this down a little bit more and move this down so you can see. So 7 plus 3. With one hand, I'm doing 10 points of damage. How much damage should I really be doing for a challenge rating 2 monster? It says between 15 and 20 hit points. We're really way off. Okay, what about the other attack? If we use both hands and we're not using a shield. Okay, well now that is 8 plus 3, and it's 11. It's still way too low. So how do we fix that problem? And I think the easiest way to fix that problem is to double the dice. Frankly, I think there's no other choice but to double the dice that they are wielding, and you know, everything else will be the same. Make that a 2. Make that a 2. We're gonna get somewhere between 15 and 20 against a level 2 character. Now, level 2 characters in the front line will generally have, you know, about 20 hit points, maybe 22. It could be even higher, just depending on how they've built their character and so forth. But that's not a unreasonable number to expect. So they should be able to get hit once and still be standing. Yep. If you hit a wizard, it'll be a bit different. Would it kill a wizard outright? Probably not. Okay. So let's have a look and see what the numbers are now. So we're dealing with half of an 8, so that's 4.5 multiplied by 2, and we get 9. So then we add the 3 for the strength modifier, plus 3, and we should have an average of 12. So we've just bumped it up to 12. Okay, so what does that mean if I take that 12 and add my 3? Well, you know exactly what that's done. That's now pushed us into the bottom of the range that we should be doing for a challenge rating 2 monster. Okay, we should be hitting about between 15 and 20. So that's right on the dot. That's spot on. So that's what we'll do. That's fixed. Let's have a look at this one. Are we in the right place for this? And it should be. We shouldn't have moved too much. So 5.5 is half of the average of 10. So they're there. And then we multiply that by 2. And we get 11. Then we add the 3. Gets a 14. So we take 14. Okay. And then if you have a look at this, we add that 3 from the fire damage, and it's now 17. So we're now in that bracket that we were aiming for, between 15 and 20. And that's the average damage that we expect to do. Is it possible to do significantly more? Absolutely, it is. Critical hits could do that. Just rolling dice could do that. That's absolutely possible. But it's certainly not the end of the world. Like even a frontline character who's level 2, if you did maximum damage with a Warhammer, and say you rolled 2 10s, so you got 20, plus the 3, that's 23, and then plus the fire. Heck, if you rolled full damage on that, 23, it'll be like 29. That won't outright kill you. That might drop you, but it won't kill you outright. So it's still all right. It will work. So I wouldn't worry too much about that sort of stuff. But yeah, critical hits are always one of those things. That's where it's dangerous. Level 1s and 2s character, level 1 and 2 characters, instant death is always a possibility. After that, it doesn't really come up. That's what I would do to solve the problem in terms of the damage output for your Azer. There is always a huge risk when you're dealing with really low-level characters like or monsters like challenge rating 1 and 2. When you start using the bigger dice, like a D10 is a dangerous dice, and so is a D12. And so sometimes it's better to remove them as possibilities. If I were you, I would not use the Warhammer in 2 hands. I would stick to using this monster with one-handed and a shield. I feel like that is probably the optimal way to play the monster. and that's probably how it would function, rather than the only reason it's got 2 hands is if you manage to get rid of the shield, or it doesn't have the shield on them for whatever reason. There's nothing else that really needs to be done to the Azer. I actually think that's perfectly fine the way it is. But let's have a look at chat, because it's always interesting to see what they have to say. And let's see what you have come up with. Hello, Derp. How are you? In my opinion, should keep the AC high and hit points low. I disagree, Derp. I disagree. I looked at older versions of the Azer, and I looked at I looked at older versions of the Azer, and one of the things that stood out for me is its armor class is high, but nowhere near that high, and its hit points being low may not be so extreme though. Yeah, so I have pushed hit points up, and the reason being, like, you've got to understand how much damage your characters can do at a certain point. Hello, Fred Huber. Derp and Fred Huber are patrons, by the way, and subscribers. Thank you for being here. Hi, John. Like, anywhere between 90 and 58 hit points, even at level 2 with a group of 5 characters, my collection of players would probably kill an Azer in about 1 round. Possibly 1.5 rounds. That's just one of them. If we give them 2, we might get 3 rounds. And that's kind of what we want in terms of a timer, right? You put 2 down and you get about 3 rounds of combat. It's really just a timer, because the problem with a fight that only takes 1 round is everybody's not necessarily going to get a chance to do very much before you're finished. And I was looking at what Kelsey had done, and what Kelsey had done with Shadow Dark is exactly what I was thinking probably needed to be done. And we're not building Shadow Dark here, we're doing 5e. But what she had obviously done is she thought really hard about this. She put her armor class as a 15. Now mine's a 14 in here. But she also increased the level of the monster from being really a challenge rating 2 monster to a level 3 monster. And gave it, fire immunity, which she doesn't put a lot of things into it, but it does actually have a fire attack with its hammer, and it does a couple of attacks. It doesn't just do 1 attack. So there's a couple of different ways we could do this. We could go with it makes more than 1 attack, but that would actually push the damage too far, or we can say it makes 1 attack and it just does more damage. So there's a couple of different ways you could look at doing that. And I decided in the end that giving it multi-attack would cause too many problems mathematically. It would actually push the damage up too far, just because you're adding the strength modifier too many times. And that extra +3 twice instead of once is just enough to start pushing it into a different realm. So I looked at that and I thought, no, probably not a good idea. Maybe I feel differently about that. I guess my biggest issue too is it's more around when it's wielded two-handed. There are probably a couple of ways you could do it, but yeah. So I looked at this and I think, okay, she actually has nailed it pretty well. So a lot of my inspiration for what I'm doing here is based on the fact that previous versions of the games did not really have its armor class being stupidly high. And if it did have a higher armor class than a 14, it was because it was wearing chainmail or some other armor on it, and the level of the monster was a lot higher. For me, the Azer should probably have another version, which is the Warrior Azer. This is just a normal Azer as far as I'm concerned, specialized warrior. That was what I was thinking in terms of this, and what should probably happen. Okay, so what else do we have here? I like hit points as a timer concept. If you never tell the players the hit points, then you can drop HP if the battle is going too long. Yes, you can, exactly. The problem with, thinking in terms of hit points as being anything but a timer, is you start thinking that they are God, or they're really important, and they're really not that important. Hit points are really just a guesstimation in terms of a timer. Purple worm, I think Bullet, a couple of other burrowing creatures have tremor sense. You can justify it being short or long range depending on the concept, yes. And I feel like because they would be in volcanic locations, which are seismic, tremor sense makes a lot of sense to me. So that's why I included it. Oversized iron-handled warhammer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're wielding a different size type of hammer than everybody else. I aim for 3 rounds per medium combat encounter. I always find that about 3 rounds is about spot on. It gives everybody time to do a couple of different things before the battle is over. Yeah? Or damage on role play, the die roll is for drama. I'll tell you what we'll do is I will do a separate build for it. I'll take it and I'll rebuild it, and I'll do it with multi-attack, and it does 2 attacks instead of 1. And we'll look at how the maths works, because we've done this fairly quickly. It's pretty much done, right? It's not as complicated as some of the other monsters we've dealt with, and we'll see what we get. And I tell you, I still think this is probably the best way, but I could be wrong. So let's jump back over. Still want your feedback. I'm still interested. Okay, so here is our Azer, and we'll go down. Blah 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 blah. And then I got to copy this. Paste. Okay, let's try and build in a multi-attack with the hammer and see if we over-talk it. I'm just trying to think about what I want to do here. Okay, I need another monster. I need a gauge. Animated armor is a giant. Whoops, that's right. I'm spelling it my way, not the American way. Okay. Animated armor is another one of these things where it's got a really high armor class, but its challenge rating should really be moved. It shouldn't be a challenge rating 1 monster. Multi-attack. Bring this across. And we will build one with, okay. So we'll rebuild it, which is basically take it back to where it was, and then calculate our damage output and see what we get. And okay, what was the damage output on the first one? 7 and 8. Okay, 7 and 8. That's right, 7 and 8. And yeah, that's 8. Okay. Okay, let's do some math and then see what we're getting in terms of our damage output. So per round, this monster should be doing between 15 and 20 points of damage. So I strike with the Warhammer in one hand, and it does 7 points, plus the 3. Okay, so that's 10. That's all right. But if I do 2 attacks and they both strike, I multiply that by 2, we're now on 20. Do you see what I mean? So 20 points of damage is within the range. That's fine. But now if we look at the range that we've been given, what happens if we start using it two-handed? And our average is now an 8. Okay, we did 11 points of damage. And then we have 2 attacks. Well, hang on, that's not even right, is it? Because that we haven't even added the fire damage. So it's doing fire damage as well. So that's 7 plus 3 is 10, plus another 3 for the fire is 13. We do 2 attacks, or that's if they both hit, We're multiplying that by 2. That's 13. We get 26. That's a lot of damage. This is why I didn't want to do it this way. That's just with the first one. Okay, now the second one, it's going to be worse, isn't it? It'll be 8 plus the 3 plus another 3 for the fire. It's 14. Multiply that by 2 if we get 2 attacks. We get 28. So giving them 2 attacks is just not the right solution. It's not going to work. It's a mistake. So building it this way would be a terrible idea. You would do far too much damage for a level 2 character. And this is when you would be facing it. You know, level 1 character facing an Azer is probably not a good idea. But a level 2 character, yes. Yes, that would work. So I think this is something we should definitely ditch. I think the first way of dealing with it that I laid out is probably the best way. It still needs to be tested, but based on the fact that I've only used the Azer a few times, I don't think there's going to be too much of a problem. You know, I know what my players can deal with it, you know, at level 2. And my group is highly experienced, have played the game a long time. They're all dungeon masters as well. So I think that's essentially where it needs to be. So, yeah, I don't think I'm going to change that. I think that's going to be the one I'll put up. Okay, so let's have a look here. What else do we have here before I disappear? I will probably also, I probably should also quickly, no, will I show you what I did with the Manticore? Maybe I should. I don't know. We'll see. You let me know if you want me to do that. There's not much to change. It's a pretty good monster. It works really well. Okay, gnome clearance can be pretty cool. Yep. The damages for drama. Yes, sure. Yeah, I can see that. Yep. Present for duty. Present for duty, good Sir Fred. I don't know. What does that mean? Present for duty. Oh, you're present for duty. Agile Monk is a patron, a subscriber, and a moderator. Yes, he is present for duty. I still want to play Terminator as a investigative psychodrama, hide the sci-fi elements behind character psychosis. What are we talking about here? Okay, so let me look. I'm pretty sure I did most of the maths for the Manticore. So I'll bring up the Manticore. Okay, let's do that. I'll just find that little document, and I probably need to close this, and the Manticore, there it is, and I want a comparison to what I would normally do with it. I was looking at the Manticore, and it's actually a really well designed monster, and when I think about when I've run the Manticore, it's actually done what it's supposed to do. It's strange that might be the case. There's really only one thing that I had to gripe about. But I didn't really feel like it was something that would Manticore. Get the word right. Manticore. Okay. Manticore. Alright, so I'm bringing up Manticore. Okay, extra. Hashtag extra. The Manticore. Which means I will put these all up onto Patreon at the end of the week when I get, I'm not working my day job. So you won't have to wait too long. It's not that far off. Okay, I think I've got this all lined up. Have I got this all lined up? I hope so. Manticore, Manticore, Manticore. Okay, yep. I'm ready to show you what I've got here. So this is what I put together for the Manticore. The Manticore is a challenge rating 3 monster. And when you look at how it's built, it's surprisingly well designed. Like, for challenge rating 3, right, proficiency bonuses are +2. They don't usually get those things wrong. And then it's got armor class of 13, but they have marked it as a 14. That's perfectly all right. It's got it's a high dex monster. I was trying to figure out why we make it a 14 when does a Manticore have armor? Do we need to say it has natural armor of some kind? And then I was thinking back to the legends behind the Manticore, and the fact that it has iron in its quills, and that it consumes iron. So the idea behind it having natural armor and pushing its armor class up a little bit is the fact that the creature is got so much iron in its system, so its skin is tougher than other creatures. So I could understand that, and it's not that far out from the parameters. So I didn't really think that moving the 14 had any real value. I could take it down to a 13, but that would just be nitpicking. Like, it just isn't necessary. Not at all. It's not nearly as important as you might think. And then I was looking at the hit points. So like hit points, average is 68. It's a 10D, it's 80-10, 80-10, 80-10 plus 24. It's the average. So the maximum you can have is 104, right? If you use that formula. And I would run them at the maximum for my group. Absolutely. So is that within the parameter for challenge rating 3? Well, it is. It says 101 to 115. That's right smack in the dot. There's nothing that needs to be done to that. That's how well designed it is as far as I'm concerned. Then I was looking at its speed. Its speed on land and its speed in the air is fine with me. I don't think we need to worry about those. I didn't change any of the ability scores because I didn't see any point. Its perception, did it have perception as a skill? I don't think I had included perception. Yes, I did. I did add perception as a skill. I think one of the reasons why I added perception and it didn't have perception is because it's kind of like a lion, and I felt like that's a normal aspect to a lion, its ability to see. They have, it's a cat. It's really good at seeing stuff, right? It's just a big, huge cat with wings, essentially. So I felt like I needed to add the perception. So that's plus 3 bonus and the wisdom modifier. Add that in. It's got dark vision. Its dark vision is 60 feet. The problem is everybody else has got the same thing. So if, I suppose I could change it, and why not? We'll just change it. But that's not a big change. That's a pretty small one. Its passive perception obviously has been moved because it was 11, and because I gave it, proficiency in that, its passive perception is a bit higher. But other than that, it didn't really didn't have to do anything else to do it. And then common. It can speak common. It could speak other languages. I really couldn't care less. That's all right too. The tail spike regrowth. The Manticore has 24 tail spikes. Use tail spikes regrow within the Manticore when the Manticore finishes a long rest. And it's a really simple mechanic. It's easy to track. You've got 24 quills. It's like you're having 24 arrows. When you use up all your 24 arrows, you can't keep throwing spikes. And you fly away, you have a rest, you come back and you do it again. Like that's how you would use it, right? That's fine. And then you look at the multi-attack. It does 3 attacks. So it can use 3 of its tail spikes, or it can make a bite attack and 2 claws. Now, I was looking at this and I was thinking, okay, is its bite really going to be any more vicious than its claws? It's got big claws. If you think about the amount of damage that a lion can do with its teeth and with its claws, it's probably about the same. I don't really think they need to be much different. I feel like their claws coming out and their teeth coming out, probably just as powerful. And then you look at the amount of damage and what it's rolling to hit. So its hit modifier for all of this is a plus 5. Is that what you normally had on the stat block? Yes, plus 5, it's all there. It's a challenge rating 3 monster. It probably should have an attack modifier of 5. The table in the Dungeon Master Guide says 4, but that's bullshit. It should be 5. It's right where it needs to be. So that doesn't need changing. Why is that? Because its strength and dexterity is so high. So that falls right in line with what you would have with a level 3 character. Great. Don't need to change it. Doesn't need fixing. Its damage output. So it does a bite and a claw. Its bite does roughly, on average, 7. Okay. And then the claw apparently needed to have a D6, and it only did 6 on average. I didn't see that there'd be any point in that. You're doing more claws. What you would wind up doing in terms of your damage output, since apparently challenge rating 3 should be doing between 21 and 26 points of damage. If we take our monster and we calculate how much damage we do with just the bite and the claws, not the spikes, okay, so we take 6 and then we do another claw. If we hit 6, that gives us 12. Then we add in another 7 if we manage to hit with the bite as well. We're doing 19 points of damage. So we're a little bit too low. And it's because of the claw. So fix the claw, make it a D8, it solves the problem. Pushes it back up into that where we need it to be, which is more like a 21. And the spikes, if you do 3 tail spikes and they all hit, you're going to get 21 points of damage. That's exactly what we needed. That's what we were aiming for. So that's all fine too. It's the same with the bite and the claw. They all do exactly the same damage. You don't really need to worry too much about whether you're doing one or the other. It's just about, whether you're up close or not. And there's so little that needs to be done to the stat block. So all I did was change the claw from a D6 to a D8. And that solves our damage output. 3 attacks, they all do 7 points of damage. If they all hit, they're going to do 21. That's in our bracket that we needed to get to. Just really small changes. There's so little that needs to be done to the Manticore to make it a workable monster as far as I'm concerned. So I really think Wizards of the Coast did a great job with this monster. It was so close to being right smack where it needed to be. So well done. Great. Great to see. It's always nice when there's a monster that really doesn't need any major adjustment. Just small tweaks, small tweaks. Okay, well, the Manticore has been around since 1977, 78, and has a major creature for D&D. Yeah, so the Manticore has been around far longer than 1977 and 1978. The Manticore is mythological, so it's been around much, much longer than that. In terms of Dungeons and Dragons, it's been around for about that long, I suppose, but it's been around longer than that. You completely agree on the 120 feet dark vision. Old D&D Manticores had great vision and were very hard to surprise. And they should be hard to surprise. Claws do more than bite, actually, old school. Do they? Claws do more than... Well, I mean, we can push it up. It's a challenge rating 3 monster. If we pushed up the claws, how much more damage would it be doing? I'm just thinking about that, John, now. Let's have a look. I mean, we could tweak it. We don't have to. I mean, we don't have to build everything around. We don't have to build everything around AD&D or older versions of Dungeons and Dragons. That's not really absolutely necessary. Oh, you mean with D&D? Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. So I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, we could do that, and it would probably still be fine. It's not going to be your go-to tool, obviously, because that would be silly. You wouldn't use that as a go-to tool. But let's have a look. Let's look at the maths, since I haven't been here that long, and let's see what happens if we punch it up and make it a D10. How would that look if we actually used the maths and made the claws more vicious than the bite? And honestly, I kind of wonder if... is there any kind of information saying whether a lion's bite or claws do more damage? Have they actually done research on that? Does a lion's claws or bite do more damage? Let's see. What do they say? A lion's claws are more damaging than their bite. Oh my God. So even way back then, Mr. Gary Gygax must have actually done a bit of research about the amount of force and power that operates with a lion's bite. A lion's bite force is around 650 psi, but large males can bite with a force of... Okay. However, lions kill their prey by crushing their throats rather than by forcing... rather than by the force of their bite. Well, that makes sense, yes, okay, and then this is an AI. Okay. Claws 2, Elder Ring. Oh, this is Elder Ring. Without claws and teeth, would it kill you? Come on. You can sit on you and kill you. Frequently asked questions. This possibly this is what's going on. I get a distinct feeling that this is probably what has happened. Let's see what happens if we do the maths. Let's see if we push up the claws damage and keep the bite where it is. Would we actually make it too much? It's a really good question. It'll be a D10 then, wouldn't it? So let's go 1D10, which is, if it's 1D10, it would be 5.5. 5.5. Then we add the 3. And it comes to 8.5. Okay. So it's not that much more. And we're doing 2 claw attacks. They're of 8. So 8 times 2. 2 claw attacks. Then we add our bite attack of 7. Plus the 7. It's 23 points of damage. Is that outside of the realm? No, it's not. It's right smack in the money bin. It's right between 21 and 26. The quills can stay the same. They don't need to move. We just leave them where they are. You know, it's the tail end, but so it means that it's more dangerous up close than it is with its quills. It's not really going to be doing that unless it runs out of quills, though. It wouldn't hurt the stat block. It's a challenge. So it's a challenge rating 3 monster, and it's got characters of level 3 facing it. Would that kill it? Probably not. They probably survive that, even with the multi-attack. You sold me. It's done. Yeah. Now, did I do this correctly? Just make sure I'll just recalculate it again. So 5 and 3 is 8. It's not a lot of extra damage. It's pretty close. 8 times 2, because there's 2 attacks if they hit, plus the 7, gives us 23. Yeah. Yeah, it works. Well, guess what? We just did it. So slight adjustment. So a little bit more done to it, but not that much. It's only a small adjustment, really. Just a smidgen. Just a tiny little hair. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, I guess that one will be going up into Patreon at the end of the week as well. Dun, dun, dun. Voila. I don't know. What do you think, John? Is that what you're kind of aiming for? But you fixed it with the 1d8, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we actually made it perfectly fine with the 1d10. 1d10 kind of falls in line as well. That works as well. Yeah, better than the d6 here. There has been with panthers and some lions. See, I told you, yeah, John, you're right. Well, let's get real, John. I know you're doing a lot of research and development yourself in tabletop role-playing games right now. So I am so busy, and I'm sure you are too. Okay, so I'm going to end this poll. So we did the Azer and we did the Manticore, and nobody's going to ever know that I did the Manticore, probably because they'll never realize that it's not listed as an actual thing. So do you think the Azer stat block needs fixing for Dungeons & Dragons 5e? Yes, 45%. I don't know if it's changed the way that you think it needs to be fixed, but I've at least shown you how you go about the process. You could always do it yourself, or just take what I put up into Patreon. It's fine. Just watching, 27%. Undecided, 18%. And no, 9% out of 11 votes. Interesting. Interesting. Anyway, I've waited like 12 years. Well, I would say actually it's more like 11 years. 11 years to get to a point where I could go through and start rebuilding these monsters that I was playtesting way back in the day. For those of you who don't know, my name is in here. I was a playtester. I wasn't happy with things. And I finally get a chance to go through and do what I think needed to be done. It's weird that these things happen, but yeah. I could rename it. I'm probably not going to worry about it. I'll just do a short edited video and talk about it that way. It's probably the easiest way. Anyway, we're done for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're dealing with making, what are we making tomorrow? Gloves. The improved. Something like that, yeah. We're back tomorrow. We'll do yeah, gloves, magic gloves. Let's make some magic gloves tomorrow. I think that would be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Yeah, so thank you for watching and listening. Huge thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon who keep supporting me so that I can keep doing this sort of thing. And I'm hoping that you're getting something out of this. For those of you who are wondering, will I ever get away from 5e? Yes, back to basic Beck Me D&D is coming, and a lot of Shadow Dark is on its way because I love this game. And it's basically just another D&D game. And a Super Atomic. Yeah. Anyway, so huge thank you to everybody. And then, if you took part in the poll, great. Thank you so much. Anybody in chat who's been commenting, Agile Monk, Fred Huber, Derp, all patrons, really appreciate your feedback and your insight. It really does help. And of course, John, I did notice you in there, John. So yeah, huge thank you for commenting. It really does help. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.